Gentlemen, welcome back to the Front Row Dads podcast. I'm joined today by Front Row Dad brother and just an all-around inspiring human, Kyle Reedstrom. We're going to get into our conversation here in just a moment, and you'll learn more about Kyle and why we're having this conversation. And along those lines, we are entering here the business evolution pillar within Front Row Dads. If you go to frontrowdads.com, you would see that our business evolution pillar is defined as structuring our businesses so that we consciously choose to be family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. That we don't just talk about putting family first, but we actually have a business that supports that. And look, we all love our business. We love building. We love the team. We love the income and the freedom and all of that can come through having a successful, thriving, healthy being the key word, business. And that's what we're going to explore. Over the course of the year within Front Row Dads, we explore 6 pillars. We spend 2 months in each one, covering wealth and legacy, vibrant health, thriving marriage, intentional parenting, emotional intelligence, and of course, business evolution, like we just spoke about. When I asked the group, who should I be talking to in our community about business evolution, it was a unanimous. It was the raving fans emerged from the darkness into the light and said, Kyle is the guy. He inspires us. He's doing the work. He's building. And also, Kyle is a great example of a nice guy finishing first. It's a person who operates with integrity and something that's sustainable. And it's also replicatable. We're going to get into all of what he's doing, his journey, his life here in just a few minutes. But before I do that, I also want to tell you, since we're talking about exciting things and exciting people within Front Row Dads, is that we have a couple of big announcements, cool things that have been unveiled here recently. Maybe the most exciting for me and for many others is that, and it's been asked about for years, John, when can I come to a live event? And we just haven't been able to expand our retreat program quick enough until now. And we have our first event, live event, in-person event available to our members and those in the Front Row Dad community out there who have not officially a Front Row Dad member yet, but want to come hang out with the Front Row Dad community. Everybody who can say, I'm a family man with a business, not a businessman with a family, or that's what I aspire to be, then you are welcome to this event. All the details at frontrowdads.com/live. It's going to be a couple days here in Austin, immersive experiences, talking with people, hashing things out, reflecting, journaling, discussing, learning from other people that are like-minded, like-hearted, have the same vision, the same goals, that want amazing businesses. They want to be entrepreneurs and owners, but they don't want their business owning them. They want to own their lives. They want to show up and engage with their families. They want to be legendary dads. So if that sounds good, go to frontrowdads.com/live and check that out. And if you can't make it to one of our events in person, then we have online options for you. So you might not be able to fly, but we have a half-day online summit coming up, and that date is September 22nd. We've got a business evolution half-day event where you can meet all the community members. So if you're not part of the Front Row Dad community yet, but you are ready to be, fully committed to surrounding yourself with men that will hold you to a high standard, then consider joining Front Row Dads. We have 300 members from 15 different countries, and we just keep finding more and more of the right people to lock arms with and move forward with. So that business evolution summit is coming up. We've got our boy Qasim Aslam is going to be there, and he just ran a call with our group about finding niche businesses, and he is probably one of the smartest, wittiest, and most amazing humans. His family, here's how you also know they're amazing. It's not just internet telling you they're amazing. It's their families that say how amazing they are. I got a chance to interview his wife on the Front Row Dad podcast, and Suzanne, kept saying, yeah, Qasim is an amazing man. He's an amazing husband. And they love hearing that. You see videos of Qasim's kids, and you just realize that this is all part of the community that we want to be around. Like, I want to be like Qasim when I grow up. Like many of the members, I want to embody so many of their qualities. I share this with you guys because whether it's online or in person, you have options to participate in Front Row Dads. Don't do this journey alone. Do this with other people that are heading in the same direction, which is to create high standards in the areas of life that matter most to where when we get to the end of our lives, we look back and say, we really showed up for our families. So guys, let's get into our conversation today with a man who's doing all of what I just said, showing up, being part of the brotherhood, being there for his family, inspiring men. His name is Kyle. He's with us on the show today. Kyle, so good to have you, man.
John, I'm happy to be here, man. This podcast was a huge draw for me, and it's an absolute honor to actually be on it, man. I'm super pumped.
Well, we're just going to talk about life. That's it. I mean, if somebody were to explore our prep behind the scenes, it sounds like this. Let's just have an honest conversation about your life. What you're doing is great. And and people can, relate to it. They can really relate to it. So let's start with the most important piece of the puzzle here, which is tell us about your family. Tell us about the Reedstroms and who are you, man? And who's at home?
Absolutely. Okay. So we started as the Fargo contingent, the Northern contingent.
Yeah, that's right.
Dads. I was like excited to be, hey guys, I was branded as Kyle from Fargo for a while, and that worked for me, right? It can place me. But my beautiful wife, Haley, we're coming up on 4 years of marriage. It's fun because November's our anniversary, November 17th. And we've just decided to champion our anniversary like the Super Bowl event of the year. If I look back on our years, my highlight trips are we take a big week-long trip on the 17th. Sometimes we tie it into Thanksgiving even and just give her heck, And so last year we went down to Destin, Florida area, and just the sand was squeaky underneath our feet. Our little daughter was 1.5. It was just memorable. So Haley and I are coming up on 4 years of marriage. And it's fun because Haley left her job as a CPA last May. We just celebrated that anniversary as well. And we've really both dove into business and family together now, linked arm in arm. And that in her day, in my day, is filled also with our 2 kiddos. Rosie, who's 2 years old, just turned 2, and she's the little boss of the house. And Wesley, my little man, is 4 months old now and had a heck of a time learning how to sleep, but he's getting chubby, and now he's getting more and more happy and more and more sleepy. So it's you can tell I'm a little more well-rested than a couple months ago. So
I love exploring that kind of stuff, where you're just getting, the storm is upon you, right? You're just, you're not sleeping. Somebody, it's just whatever challenge is coming your way. People can really relate to those things. Dude, what's been one of the harder things about being a dad or a family man in the last 4 years?
So I'm going to go right to the recent. You feel like you have it figured out, especially if you're an achiever. You had one child, so now you feel like you're an expert, right? We had a second child. We had Wesley in April, and this is a testament to Front Row Dads. I really struggled to find someone that had walked in my shoes, man. Mm. And what I mean by that was, Wesley had a fast birth. He had a lot of tension in his neck. He was causing digestive issues. There was a lot of colic. That's defined by a child crying for a certain amount of hours per day, and it was in pain. And I immediately, with Rosie is when I signed up for Front Row Dads, literally in the middle of the night while we were sleep training, or the story is kind of funny. And I made a post about that recently. Wesley, I had the Front Row Dads community, man. And I went to the community, and I was having a conversation with fellow brother Matt Bergstrom, who's up in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. We've connected as Northerners up here in the Front Row Dads world. And I was telling him this. I was saying I had nowhere to go again. My wife and I both didn't really have someone that was really going through exactly what we'd been through or currently were going through. And I was able to just let that out in the Front Row Dads community. And Mike Gorman, man, guy I met at the retreat, he had just studied a huge amount of functional medicine and gave me a ton of tips and tricks, along with many other people. Man, I was overwhelmed with the amount of tactical advice, and then just the amount of empathy of like people that had been there. Sometimes you just need to hear, man, this was my story. And now my little 3-month spurt of like colicky baby sounds like it pales in comparison to some of the other stories that people had told me. So I just needed in that time to understand perspective, because when you have been up every 45 minutes for 11 days in a row, you just don't think straight. And it's really where emotional intelligence comes into play. And it's really where you're starting to take it out on the people that are closest to you, which is your family. And that was just hard. And luckily, my wife and I really leaned on our faith in that period. We really leaned on people that we could talk with, like communities like Front Row Dads. And then we were able to build through it, man. We really tuned into Kelly Flanagan's material with a lot of just, how to become a couple, how to show up as our true selves versus our false selves in those moments, not play chess against each other. Right. I mean, you're hearing names come up. It's because it's real, dude. I literally was forming relationships with more Front Row Dads through this kind of a low point in parenting. But then we pop out of it. And like I said, little Wesley gets all chubby with drinking milk every day. And now he's just this happy little boy that, spits up on me every now and then, but not crying as much. So,
and that's, you speak to a couple of things that I think are worth mentioning. One is that we are more of a community than we are a content company. So some companies are like, we just have to pump out content. And I think, I don't remember who said this to me one time. They go, people are starved for community and they're just overloaded on content. And we need both, because we need the strategy at times. We need the resource, the book, the what do we need to do? Who do we need to see? What is the thing I need to take action on? But it's so much better when you get that because of the community, when somebody knows you, when you trust the source that it's coming from. I mean, those personal referrals, the personal stories, the recommendations, that's the gold. Not it. Look, Google has been my friend in the past. How do I ... right? And trying to find answers there. I'd far rather go through life reaching out to my buddies going, you guys got any thoughts, ideas, resources for me on this? Because that's where the best stuff comes up. So I'm so glad to hear you mention all those names, because that to me means that we're fulfilling our mission of relationships first. Anything we do, it just has to be built on the relationships. And I also want to compliment you, Kyle, because people will have come into Front Row Dads in the past, and 4 months later, 8 months later, 15 months later, they cancel their membership. And the reason they do is that they're not plugging in. They're not being active. They're not engaging. And that is something, when you want to be surrounded by brothers that look after you, it's how you show up, Kyle, that makes that all happen. You're finding all this energy because you're bringing so much to the community as well. And I want to honor you for that. Tell me real quick, or tell the everybody out there, because I think I know this, but why did you sign up in the middle of the night? You said you hinted at the story.
Okay, so this story can be long, but here's what's happening. My daughter's still not sleeping. It's 6 months. I'm reading books like any personal growth addict would do. And at this point, I had figured out what the tactics were to kind of sleep train, right? Mm-hmm. But now I was just reading books to drown out the cries in between the 10-minute, 20-minute waiting periods you're supposed to wait. So Justin Donald's book, The Lifestyle Investor, I came across randomly, man, like on Instagram or something. Some other guy was doing a book review on this book. I'm like, hey, let's listen to this. Download, put it in my ears. My daughter's crying in the other room. I'm laying on the couch, 2:42 a.m. in the morning, wide awake, listening to a investing book. But it starts with a foreword by Ryan Levesque, and he's talking about going out to lunch with Justin for this dad's group that he's a part of. And I'm like, wait, I thought I was going to hear about money and investing. They're talking about dad stuff, and they're talking about, it's an awesome plug for Front Row Dads. I stop the book. I go on the website. I start clicking buttons, and the modern day and age just fills out your information, including payment information. And I go all the way through sign up. I'm just like, but the one thing I will say, John, is I went to the website and I saw family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. It was like a light bulb moment. I said, my values align with this statement so much to the point that I can sign up. And then I woke up in the morning thinking, what did I just do?
What did I do?
And so then I kind of redo research, sleep deprived research over the next few days, and realize, oh, this is pretty legit. I fill out my profile, I get involved in the community. And then fast forward a couple months, I signed up for the retreat and flew down to San Antonio, not knowing anybody other than just names in the community and connections I'd made on the summits and stuff. Man, Front Row Dads, and I'm not just saying this, was the highlight of my 2021. It was, when I looked back and reflected, it was one of the biggest game changers for me in 2021. And the story behind it is completely spontaneous. And I think that that's why it's meant to be. I don't think things happen on accident. So it's pretty sweet.
Cool, man. Well, you've certainly brought a lot to our community, and I really appreciate you. Talk to us. Let's switch gears here and talk about how you're building your life. I know that one of the reasons we wanted to talk was that you're actually going to be on our member Q&A call. So for people that, of those 300 people or anybody that decides to become a member between now and then, in October on the 5th, we're going to host a group call, and people are going to be able to talk to you, and they're going to be able to talk to each other and share resources around building a business, right, that gives them their life. Not, again, I go back to my early Tony Robbins days as a young 20-year-old. And one of Tony's trainers said, I built an epic business that I was the owner of, but it very quickly owned me. And I remember hearing that warning and always thinking, I need to make sure that doesn't happen. And then Tim Nikolaev, who's in my band and a Front Row Dad brother, built a great business, has a lot of time freedom and wealth freedom. He came to me one time when I was like, how do we grow this business? And he said, well, let's talk about what life you want to live first, and then let's build a business around that. So how much do you want to earn? Let's set 3 goals: the realistic number, the stretch number, the exciting number, and then the gluttonous, number out there that let's just put it out there. Right. And let's look at those numbers, but what do you really, really need? And what life do you really want to live? And be honest with yourself about what you need to be happy. And that number is much smaller than, many would think it would be. Right. That number for me was still being able to drive a modest car, live in a modest home, and have time freedom, and that felt beautiful. That felt like 95% of the way there, and so that's the focus of this. That's what we want to talk about in business evolution. There's lots of, we are happy for men to grow big businesses and become very, very wealthy, as long as it's not at the expense of their family. And there are consequences that come along with that too. So Kyle, we're going to have a conversation with Kyle and other Front Row Dad brothers in October, but talking now, let's pave the way for that conversation by talking about what you've built. Let's begin with something I've heard you say, which is focus and finish. What is that?
Yeah, man, I would say that those 2 words, if you put those 2 together, is probably what directed everything for me in creating, hey, what do I want to focus on? And then the minute that you are an achiever and you're focusing on something, stuff starts to happen, and the word more comes in really quickly. And essentially, in the real estate investing world specifically, I got to meet a lot of people and read a lot of books where it was all about more, and it was all about moving the goalposts. And I quickly realized that one of the most important things I ever did, and my wife and I ever did, was set a finish line.
Yeah.
Something we could slowly watch the progress bar move from 25% to 29% complete and move towards something. And that's our story, man. My story is maybe like others. I got my degree. I was a structural engineer for 2 years, literally gritting my teeth just to prove I wasn't a quitter, because I didn't like any of it the whole time. And I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right, that changed the way I think. Classic real estate investing kind of aha moment for a lot of people. And that set me on a journey to say, hey, what's important in this? I remember a story of working with one of the smartest men that I'd ever met. He was one of my bosses. He was a structural engineer, had taken the SE, which is the structural engineering certification. If you're an SE, you're like one of the highest end engineers, right? And I had made friends and he worked, man. He was always there. The first one, he set the bar for like getting in the office at 6:30 a.m. And then if you left before 6:30 p.m., it was just this weird culture, man. And I was the new guy, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to go along with the flow here. And I remember getting to be friends with one of the finance interns at the company. He knew all the back end numbers, right? And so I was fairly high economic drive, like numbers to me, making money had to be part of the equation. And I remember learning how much money he made. And I knew the level of value and expertise he had. And I just remember asking myself, like, it was not a good number. Let me just share that with you. It wasn't a good number according to me. and where I wanted to be after 17 years at a high level expertise, which is where he was at. I said, why would you do that? What's the point of it all? Why do we, I started asking these powerful questions. And then I read this, I think it's in The Millionaire Next Door. They explain the concept of regret for businessmen or professionals that had lived this amazing life. They had this wall of accomplishment. And they said, what do you regret? And a lot of it falls into a couple buckets: travel and not seeing the things they wanted to see or doing the things they want to do. And then it was all relationships, not spending meaningful time with the ones that are closest to you that you love. I just was like, to me, one word boils those two things to achieve those things. It boils down to one word, which is lifestyle. If you can achieve a lifestyle of your dreams, you can have both of those things and not regret them. And my coach for the longest time would use the quote, "The purpose of business is to fund your perfect life." And I loved that. It was not about it was not about business being your definition or your identity. It was about using and abusing your business to fund your perfect life, man, and create exactly what you want. So I love that you brought that up. You start with what life you want to live and you go backwards to what you're going to use to get there. And that's where we're at, John. That's exactly where we've created a company now that we've branded Passive 25K Group. We call ourselves that. That's an umbrella for our companies that are helping pour into the bucket of the finish line we're trying to cross, which is $25,000 a month in passive income. And that filter alone, creating that for us, has helped give us laser focus on what to say yes to, what to say no to. And then it's given us a vision to provide everyone we work with, our clients, our team. Everybody knows when they walk through these doors, that's what we're trying to get past. We're actively working in that, John. We're not there yet. I can't wait for the day. There's going to be a celebration when we cross that finish line for everybody involved, because then our mission states that after we do that, we're going to help others do the same. And that's actually cool. That's exactly what I get pumped about, man. That's what thinking about helping others. That's a scalable thought I think I could do for the rest of my life.
You have a sign in your office, don't you? It says passive income, active.
Yes. Passive income, active life. Yep.
Active life. I love that. That's really cool. What does the finish look like for you?
So the finish for my wife and I has come down to a lot of where we spend our time, right? So let me give you the picture here. Fargo's great, but it is winter here 8 months a year. Okay. So we've gotten very good at traveling. And I think that the finish involves us living in different locations. We love the mountains of Montana. We love the springtime. We live on 4 acres here. We want to spend time here. We love summers in Minnesota Lakes area. And I think our construction is the bills are paid. Like I've said to you, we've solved the money problem, where the money, our lifestyle is taken care of, which, by the way, to clarify, John, our lifestyle is not $25,000 a month. We've created our budget and what our lifestyle is. But $25,000 is this abundant place to be where we can give what we want to give, invest what we want to invest, travel, and expand. And so what it looks like for us is a lot of different places that we want to spend time and create community. And then it's relationships, man. It's literally what relationships we've kind of had to sacrifice to do maybe to get where we wanted to be. How does our relationships with our kids look like? Some of the people I'm drawn to most in Front Row Dads are the ones that are taking their daughter golfing on an afternoon on a Tuesday during the summer, and the conversations that happen during that time. I mean, when people start telling me stories about that, man, all I want to be able to do, John, is say yes to every moment like that.
Right.
And that's why we're building business, right? Like, I don't want to have an appointment on my calendar that can't be moved when my kids are running around, right? My kids want to do stuff. One of my band members in Front Row Dads is Doug Phillips. Man, he's been such a mentor for me. He's been such a great brother. He right now is in Colorado with his family for 5 weeks, man. Yeah. And he on our last band call, he's telling me they're mountain biking. He's saying how his kids can't keep up with him. He's feeling good about himself there. But dude, that type of thing, we spent a month in Austin at the beginning of 2022. that was a move towards, we have a lifestyle that can accommodate that. And you know what, when we reflect on that, John, you know, you and I got to spend time together. I got to play volleyball with the Front Row Dads. We got to explore a new city. We got to live in we lived in like the suburbs area where we usually live on 4 acres. We just want exposure, and we want to give our kids exposure. So, yeah.
That's cool. I resonate with a lot of that, obviously. And really, I'm very, very happy for you for multiple reasons. I mean, being in such a great band and connecting with Doug, and the fact that you've hit this first number and that you're now going to hit a new number shortly and then help other people. You are helping people already to do the same. That's really what it's about. It's really about supporting each other. You know, my really good buddy, John Berghoff, who people have heard me talk about on the show, and he helped design and facilitate the first ever Front Row Dads retreat. I remember years ago, he was an executive with Vitamix Corporation, and I was a public speaker at the time, motivational speaker, right? And he brought me in. I think he flew me to France, and you know, we were running down the beach in France, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. Like, we're traveling the world together. We're just having fun. We're making a difference. Right? This is great. And he said, hey man, I just have one goal, you know, build a boat and bring my friends. Build a boat and bring my friends. And that's it. That's what I want to do. You know, you build something and bring your people along. And, you know, in your people aren't always in direct proximity to you right now. Sometimes you have to go find them. Not that you wouldn't take care of your neighbor, but your neighbor doesn't have to be your best friend. Your neighbor doesn't have, just because you bought a house in this neighborhood doesn't mean your neighbor aligns with all your values and that you want to be more like them, or they want to be like you, or right. You don't want to run the race of life together. But you know, what I hear you talking about so much, and it always comes back to that same thing, is like who you're doing this with, who you're doing this for. It's so important. You mentioned yeses and nos, right? Getting clarity on yeses and nos as you're building your business, as you're funding your perfect life, right? As you're building passive income, what have you learned to say yes to? And what have you learned to say no to?
There's 2 words that are the buzzwords in what we're talking about here, and it's active and passive, right? And I think when I was younger and I was starving for opportunity, I think of the days in my cubicle with no windows as an engineer, and I would just said yes to anything that came my way. But then you get to a point, and I think a lot of people that might be listening are experience this, where the world is kind of throwing opportunities at you every direction. And for us, and this kind of goes to Justin Donald's book. One of my favorite parts about his book was you have to kind of have your filtration system. You have to really kind of predefine it. And for us, our predefinition is right in our title. If it's an active business, we cannot say yes to it. If it can't turn active, and when we say passive, generally I operate under the 4-hour work week rule. If you can fit it into less than 4 hours and even go more than that, that's generally defined as passivity. But if it's active, man, you could be a squirrel looking at something different every week, man. And that's where focus, dude, when you're entrepreneurial and you start getting relationships and you start wanting partnerships and you're just wanting to say yes to things, man. So the hardest thing is no. But things that can be added as a straw in our bucket or a hose in our bucket, we say, you know, and our vision was, John, was always with the 25,000 was 5 streams of 5,000. And our first vision, and I hope this, I'm big on reverse engineering. You know, our first thing was to get 5 streams of 500 a month in passive income, right? 2,500 is somewhat manageable. And we started with 2, man. We were working on short terms and long-term rentals. And then we started to kind of see how those would build out. And for anybody looking, you know, for anybody that's thinking about this or hearing this, John, in business evolution, I think there's a big gap that gets created, right, John? Like there's people that are working hard 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week. And then there's people that are like entrepreneurial and they have more flexibility and they're kind of down that road. I think there's this big gap of like, how do I put a foot in that and then start to move that direction? And my number one answer to that, my next step is the smallest form of passive income starts you on that journey. And before that, even it comes back to the finish line. One of my favorite quotes that I wrote down was, "A man without vision is a menace to society." And that was like a holy smokes. But the fact is, you put the vision out there, and the minute you get agreement with your wife or a partner, man, that's one of the first dominoes that'll knock down the rest for you. For us, that was really a finish line. That was what it was. Where do we want to be? Right. And so anybody that's like, man, this guy's doing this, or they're doing that, or they're somewhere that's farther down the road. I'm all about like, what is your one hose, and then what's your finish line? Let's talk about that. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Is saying no still hard for you? I mean, now that you have that filtration system set up and you're looking at it through, hey, look, if this is active, I'm a no. Do you still find yourself, trying to sell yourself, away from your filters and values and go, it's just 100%. A one-time thing. I'm just going to short period of time. It's too good to pass up. I know it conflicts with our values, but
dude, 100%. Yes. My answer to that is it's 100. I think it's going to be hard forever. You know what the best thing that helped me with that is, John? Having a wife and B, having a team, because I'm responsible. I can't tell you how many Monday morning meetings I've come and blown up because Kyle got an idea over the weekend. Oh no, the tornado Kyle's coming in with something new. And they're we've been working on something else, man. And so out of respect, I literally have to run it by 4 people before it can be a yes, which has saved me more than it's hurt. So
that's smart. Yeah. I really think that's great. Yes, we, in our business in Front Row Dads, I've had to curb my idea, machine. It can serve, but it needs to be captured somewhere and not, just readily interrupting myself and others, for sure.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of visionaries can relate to that, for sure. What is a question that you get most often, Kyle, when you find somebody that might have anywhere between 0 and, let's say, on their way, 5,000 in passive income, and they're looking to get to where you are at that 12K level, right? They're living in a way where that will take care of their bills. And that's a great life. That's an amazing life. It really is. What questions do you get, from people who've seen you do it, who hear about you doing it? What comes your way?
I get weekly. The question you're looking for is, what do I do next?
Yeah, that's right.
Weekly. And this is why we had to create an answer, John. As part of Passive 25K group, we've created something called Passive Income University, which is everything we've done for the last 7 years, built spreadsheets, checklists, guides, everything. We've had to put it all in one place because I had to stop having the hour-long conversation. Not because I didn't like it. Every time I did it, I was jacked up and get so excited, but it just wasn't scalable for my time. We needed some sort of resource where people could feed on, and so that was the beginning of a next step, our answer for it. But before that, what's the simplest form? So it's so cool because when people come to me and they say, I've seen some of the stuff you're doing, I've started more and more to put myself out there and tell people what we're up to, which is uncomfortable at the beginning, but man, it creates attraction, especially when I share the negatives. It's almost like when I share some of our failures or some of what we're struggling with, it's such a draw and attraction. I think so many people get drawn, or so many people are maybe wired to share your big successes or your big wins. And whenever I've shared something that I'm struggling with or something I need help with is when I've made all my contacts, all of the mentors have showed up.
I realize this could be weighted. This answer that you might give here could be weighted, but understanding that and still asking it because of your atmosphere, because of your ecosphere that you've created of all the people around you. What path have you seen most people take that first step? So you might say, oh, John, it's almost always single family homes, or it's almost always real estate, or it's almost always, acquisition of small business. I don't know, whatever it is. Do you see a common pattern?
I would say the answer there is real estate. That's the common thing. I think people get familiar with it through the ownership of their own home. And then I recently had a conversation with about somebody that was talking about a franchise. And even recently on my podcast, somebody came and talked about Turo with renting out vehicles and things.
Right.
And the biggest designation I say there is, what are you getting into versus an appreciating asset that you can kind of like time just helps you out versus maybe some of these, you have to really turn the crank. Whereas you can be, I'm in a lot of ways, I'm a big dumb animal. And all I did was just pretty much buy homes and wait. When I was in college, I just kind of picked one and I lived in it and rented to my friends. And guess what? I mean, people understand the power of this. This is just Fargo. I bought that $140,000 and then refinanced it in 2017 for 175, refinanced it in 2020 for, it was at 200 then. Now it's worth about 235. You know, that was just time, man. And so that to me, it's a no-brainer. It has to be a part of it for any passive income journey. And I really think it gives you a lot of the skills and the mentality in an easy way, because I've also seen the people that jump into a passive income vehicle or a business vehicle, and the waters get muddied, man. They get to be damaged goods in it, or they don't get some quick wins, and then they lose it and they go back to the W-2 world. They go back to building someone else's dreams and they lose the excitement behind it. And I'm huge on momentum in this world, man, in so many worlds, right?
And we're not even talking net worth here either, because you're not calculating that into your 25K number, right? This is all cash flow, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But at the same time, your net worth is soaring as well.
Correct. Yeah. And that's the cool part is net worth is another one of those things, John, where it started getting that. I understand the importance of it, but I also understand how you can get lulled into, oh, I want more. I want the number to be bigger, you know? And that's just a tough thing for competitive people. But the cash flow number, man, if you're creating recurring cash flow, that lives beyond you, brother. You know, that you can't stop that snowball.
God, oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had this like painful remembrance of all these past conversations over the last 6 years of doing Front Row Dads. And I have never really thought about it this way, but the most painful thing I ever hear is when somebody has generated recurring revenue. They are driving a really nice car and living in a great house, and they don't have time. When I see it, when I hear it, when I feel it, when I'm in the orbit of that, it is so painful to watch people get swallowed up by their goals, swallowed by their possessions, swallowed by their obsessions and their ambitions. And, you know, and they come to, if they're talking to me, it just feels like this weight, this burden. And I'm not judging that either. I'm not being critical of that. Like, they're having a human experience. They're likely experiencing all of that because of things agreements they made when they were children, blueprints that were given to them about how the world operates. But the weight of that, you know, of the more of the comparison with other people, the not feeling like enough, sourcing approval, control, and security from our jobs and our, you know, I get meeting basic human needs. There's different conversations to be had. You go, well, John, that doesn't apply to somebody over here. And I go, you're right. This is all in context. This is all in, you know, everybody's at a different place of their journey. They're at a different place in life. There's sometimes when good advice does not make any sense over here when a person's under these conditions. That advice over there, it doesn't make any sense. But
you're right, dude. And I mean, I hope what you just said is weighty, because anybody that heard that, I heard that in this way, a story about my dad. Some of the things some of the biggest stories I've heard from Front Row Dads is their relationship with their own father. Right. And a recent story that I'll share, which is tough. This is tough to share. My dad is my dad. But when I jumped into this world of entrepreneurship out of engineering, my dad was very proud of me for being an engineer. It sounded good. It was very acceptable. My dad's a state's attorney down in South Dakota, by the way. And so he's practiced law, jury trial lawyer, man. And so engineer made sense to him. Entrepreneurship didn't. And that was a big rub for us. And we've had to reconcile in a lot of ways during that transition, because there was disagreement and I needed support. Anyway, fast forward to this summer in July. My wife and I, we had a baby, my wife had a baby in April. We didn't get a lot of that early summer. So we said 4th of July, we're going to go down to South Dakota and we're going to spend the whole week, 10 days, a week, 2 weekends in a week with my family down there. And my dad happened to be going through, he's retired, by the way, but he still is in a capacity helping the new state's attorney down there. He happened to be going through a crazy, stressful jury trial. And every night, Haley and I and the kids, we would go on these hikes around the lake, or we'd go out and spend the day on the beach. We'd be coming home with these, sun-kissed skin and just having a blast laughing. Rosie learned how to swim that week. And my dad was going through maybe one of the most stressful trials he's ever been through, and would seclude himself in different pockets. He'd want to go eat in different rooms. And I wanted to show him empathy and say, dude, I understand that you are literally serving the public at one of the highest levels I've ever seen, but wake up, man. We are right here, and you don't get to spend a lot of time with your 2 grandkids now. And there's this battle that I had, and I sit here with all the love for my dad, and we actually had a conversation about this. But dude, he is in his 60s, and he is locked in on something that when he, at the end, in my opinion, he won't look back and say, God, I'm glad I just spent the whole week getting all my exhibits ready for that trial and ignored my son and his family. And I'm not, maybe there's something maybe there's some spite laden in my tone there, but that's tough. I don't want that, John. That's a weight that you talk about.
Yeah. And if you feel hurt, that's okay. Right. Like, that's all right.
Meanwhile, my mom has worked for Wells Fargo for a number of years, and she's upstairs working from her home office. And then Haley and I and the kids are the ones enjoying the summer, and part of me kind of thinks like, this is a little ironic. This is not what we want, but I get that this is a totally different generation, totally different, but it helped us, John, to formulate the path that we wanted to walk down.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah. You can have compassion and hurt all in the same time. You could be compassionate to how they were brought up and their blueprints and their generation and all of that, right? And their habits and their needs. And it's like, yes, and I can feel hurt, and I can see that I don't want that, and I can wish that they were more engaged. All of that can be true at the same exact time. Yeah. When you think about great dads, you look around and you see men that have the business evolution pillar, in flow. They're generating income, but they're not being swallowed up in their business, and they're developing the right teams, and they have health, right, through that business. Who do you see? What do you see? Who are you inspired by?
And it goes to a story. A lot changed for me when I met Haley, and I both met a couple that was financially free, and they were the way that they were living, the mentality they had around coming early and staying late for things. What I see is the story I shared, where you are on a Tuesday afternoon, having an adventure with your son or daughter. Some of the dads I think of, many of them, the mentors for me have come from front row dads. And I think of a one-on-one that I had during one of the summits where I got partnered up with a guy that had a really successful business down in Texas, I believe. And he said, every time I came up to it, there was a decision that I got put in the precipice of a decision. I never decided to make more money or grow. Instead, I decided to make the decision to buy back more of my time with hiring a person to take that on, or, and those are the dads that I feel like are just present, man. Our last one, relationship for kids, or being a great dad for kids, is spelled TIME. And that's all that it comes down to for me. And so my kids are young. I feel fortunate to have such a brotherhood of people that are like grooming me to like, oh my gosh, and some of the stories that they're doing with their older kids, I'm just so excited for. But I see these dads doing things like summer reading projects where they're reading books together. And I see, one of the brothers, Joe McDonald, is during the day taking his younger son on hikes, and they collect a rock every time they go. And they have this big collection of rocks in his room at the end of the summer.
That's cool.
Dude, these visual things. And I'm a big picture guy, man. I'm a big video. Like I use my dang phone, and I take like home video style videos. It's I try to be cheesy with it too. But then, dude, so many times during the middle of winter, we'll look back on a summer memory, and I took a 4-minute video, and it's like, no one can ever take that away from me, man. Mm. And I think a great dad just has, they just have a memory, a external hard drive full of those. And their kids know them too,
Did you hear about the book, The Intentional Father by John Tyson?
I don't think I have.
So John's a great guy. I had him on the show before. This new book came out. It was based on a program that I experienced. It was called Primal Path. It was Rites of Passage, and written mostly about his journey with his son and the Rite of Passage program that he created. Very intentional. One of the things I remember was said in that book, and I think it was actually written in the foreword, about the person, when they brought this book to life, they were interviewing John, and some comment was made about, hey, John might not win. He might not even be able to look at his business or his church or his whatever and say, guys, I nailed that. Right. He might say and he is very successful in all these areas, right? He's very successful. But the thing that I remember in that book was like, he confidently could say, if there is one thing we're talking about that I just nailed it, it was fatherhood. And I was like, how cool is that? Yeah. And how rare is that? How common is it for somebody to be like, man, I fucking killed it in business. But dude, I definitely was not around for my kids as much as I wanted to be.
Dude,
right?
This comes from the quote. One of our favorite movies to watch during a pregnancy was What to Expect When You're Expecting, right? Just a laugh out loud movie. And one of the dad's guys that go on their stroller cruise, you know what I'm talking about, John, or no?
No, I didn't see it.
So now you will after this, but there's this stroller crew of dads. I mean, they got babies strapped to their chests. They're strolling through the park. And one of the guys, he kind of self-deprecates himself. He says, I am a subpar husband, but I am an exceptional father. And of course, that reminded me of that. But
dude, the other thing I think people struggle with, and I hear this commonly, is, you might get one thing rolling, but you're dropping the ball in another area. Like I think Scott Groves talked about this, right? There's 4, if he said he rates himself, and he asks his wife actually to rate him in these 4 categories, right? So it's their marriage, it's parenting, it's business, and then it's like this fun personal category for him. So he would say to his wife, right? Like, how am I doing in business? How am I doing in our marriage? How am I doing as a dad? And how am I doing in this like personal hobby health category of taking care of myself? For Scott,
it's probably jujitsu.
So, and we had a bunch of guys do this as well. And then we talked about it at a retreat, and no doubt, and you would have guessed this, a lot of the wives rated the men very high in business, right? And that's happened to me before too. So it's also, the thing I want to mention about our community and about men is that this isn't about Front Row Dads being a group of people who are perfect in this category. These are men that are also aspiring to put family first, who, sometimes we are better than most, but when we're really looking at our day-to-day and our execution and then our results, sometimes it's hard to be great in all those categories. So you might then put some attention on your family, and you might see business slip a little bit. Not always. You'll hear stories of people who put their attention on their family and talk about how their business just scaled because they had the right people, the right programs, the right processes, et cetera. So again, there's lots of ways to look at this, but I think that it's the point that I wanted to make here was, guys, when you look at all these things, growing your business and being in a great marriage and being a great dad and taking care of your health, it is a little like juggling. And sometimes one of those balls will get dropped, or and you take your eye off of one and put it on another. And this other one tends to like lose a little momentum. All normal, all natural. Everybody goes through it, and juggling multiple priorities is hard, especially when we talk about, going back to the beginning, focus and finish, right? There's seasons. That's why we can't focus on all 6 pillars in Front Row Dads at once. We take 2 months and we focus on one, and we take 2 months and we focus on another. And over the course of the year, we got a journey. And over the course of, multiple years, we got a life.
Yes. I love it, man. The 6 pillars have been such a guideline for me. It's been a guideline for our band, understanding how we rank in each of those, how we would rank ourselves, how our other people might rank us, and there's a guy, TD Jakes is his name. He's a pastor, he's a public speaker.
Yeah, I've heard him.
He said he constantly would drop balls, but he would never leave the ball on the floor for too long, before he picked it up. That was,
there you go.
Yeah.
That's a thing. That's right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Kyle, what else needs to be said, man, that we haven't said today?
One of the things that has been a huge help for me, and kind of going back to, I really try to break stuff like this down, business evolution down to actionable items. I know you're huge about that on the Front Row Dad podcast. Was my coach made me create what he called, and this I'm sure is familiar for some, but he made me create what's called an MVVBP. A lot of letters, but it is essentially helps in the vision category, the focus category. So I wanted to share my MVVBP, which stands for mission, vision, values, belief, and perspective. So when I did this, and then my wife did it, and then we were able to kind of come together on it. Again, all we were trying to do is create synergy agreement. And once we were aligned, I feel like that's when everything started kind of moving forward for us. And so I wanted to share mine today, John, just because your MVVBP is something that when you say it, it's supposed to get you and others extremely excited about the vision. Okay. So our mission, and I put this MVVBP on any job description I put out when we're hiring people. I use this in different ways. I want people to read it and pretty well understand how we think and what we're about. So our mission is, I am using business to create a life where time and decisions aren't controlled by money. Once achieved, I will help others do the same so we can all experience true potential and purpose. So that was the mission. The vision is a family of inspired people that are excited each day to live up to their perfectly designed potential, people living in victory. Our values is daily faith, active husband, active father, maximizer. The belief is, I believe that we were created to discover the joy of work that is not motivated by money, so we will solve the problems that fascinates us. And the perspective that I want people to have, our family, our people are a family doing work that excites us, dedicated to creating financial and spiritual wealth for all involved. Okay. So that is our MVVBP. And I think a simple exercise for anybody that's saying, man, I've got some good ideas, man, I want this, I want to introduce this concept to my family, would be to sketch that out and understand that vision. And then it simply comes down to numbers after that, because the first number that happens in anything to do with financial freedom or anything is it's the financial freedom equation. I'm a numbers guy down to it. This really got clear for me when it was an equation, because I was an engineer. When your expenses are less than or equal to your passive income, you are free, because everything takes care of itself. That's just an equation you can achieve. And so that was our first goal. And then we wanted a vision beyond financial freedom, which was our passive 25K group vision.
It's awesome, man. So many ways to get there. I love how you're going about it. Kyle, one of the things that just showed up for me as you were saying all that was, I was like, damn, Kyle is such a thoughtful and intentional person. When you take time to know who you are, what you care about, what you want to call forward into the world. And I see the world, and you and I have talked about this, and I talk about it in Front Row Dads quite a bit, is like, part of my mission, the big mission of Front Row Dads, is to fight against this narrative the world puts out through these sitcoms and so on, which is this, ultimately a shallow and reactive dad, this bumbling idiot who can't do anything, that we play along with that. And we talk about when you go to Google and you type in the word dad, and then you hit the space bar and you're pre-populating, what are you going to type in next? Google thinks you're going to type in dad bod, dad joke, right? Where's the dad wisdom, the dad strategy, dad legends, right? It's like you bring a new brand to fatherhood that I really appreciate. And I love how you're digging your hands into the dirt here, and you're actually doing the work, and you're doing it the right way, in my opinion. And I know there's no right way to do it, but when I look at it, I'm like, with integrity, right? With integrity, serving the world, serving others. What you're building is sustainable, man. And I honor you for that. And I really want to thank you for being here. I want to remind all the Front Row Dad brothers, the members of our community, that Kyle will be with us for our call on October 5th. So make sure to mark your calendars. We have a 2 p.m. call with Kyle that day. That's 2 p.m. Central. All of the details will be found in the vault. If you're a member, you know what that is. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I'd love to get some personal time with Kyle. I'd love to be in that room and talking to him and asking questions and learning from these guys and, being a part of the brotherhood, then you can learn about membership at frontrowdads.com. All the details are there. We are not for every guy, but we are for a specific type of guy. And that is the guy that chooses to be a family man with a business, not a businessman with a family. Kyle, appreciate you very much. If people want to learn more about you, get connected to you, and of course, if you're a member, you know how to get Kyle's info through the vault, but P25K, maybe if people want to know more about that, where do we send them?
Yeah, man. So the easiest way is our website, which is p25kg.com. You'll find everything we're doing there, a lot of what I said, and ways to get in touch with me and my link tree and how to schedule time. And then we're really pumped about our podcast, man. We're on YouTube, past the 25K group on YouTube, and we're constantly trying to create more and more conversations with people that are doing it in different ways, because this is really your own utility knife. And so like our recent one that we just got done doing a guy that rents his RV out on Outdoorsy. We just did one for Turo. We have one coming up for mobile home parks. One of the Front Row Dads I'm interviewing for that. A lot of really good ones on there, and we're just getting rolling with that. So checking that out, I would say that's a great way to find us as well.
It's awesome. We'll link to all that at frontrowdads.com, guys. Thanks for being here today, Kyle. Thanks for listening, gentlemen. And if you enjoyed the show, send it on to somebody, leave a review. Let us know how we're doing.